I'm Martha Reardon Buick, and I've been involved with the ferries in the South Shore since 1974 when we first started the Hingham Ferry to Boston. At the moment, as you know, we're dealing with a great pandemic which has changed everybody's lives. We're all working at home now and not taking transit. As a result, the MBTA is in a great budget shortfall, and they're targeting cuts in services. They propose cutting the ferry services to the South Shore, which would be devastating. The ferries that have been operating so successfully recently, but for 45 years, and have changed the face of the South Shore and Boston Harbor. And the South Shore is rising up to fight this and to try to make the story for keeping the ferries going into the future.
Hi, I'm Peter Foreman, president of the South Shore Chamber of Commerce. So the ferry's important to the South Shore whether or not you actually ride it. So there are multiple benefits from the ferry service. There's the obvious commuting that takes place from all of the riders, but the support of the ferry systems also supports the use of the harbor excursions and the tourism industry that takes place many months out of the year. So those two are linked through the ferry operators. You also get some of the little bit of the recreational use, because we hear from people all the time who take this commute that unlike those who drive in on the expressway to Boston, taking the ferry is actually kind of therapeutic and relaxing. So you don't want to take that away. But this isn't just about the people who are taking the ferry. It's about broader interests. It's about economic development in the communities. It's about housing, and it's about the economic strength of the South Shore. So whether or not anyone has ever stepped foot on the ferry, they have a stake at what happens with this decision. They may not recognize it right away, but this has ripple effects beyond Hingham, beyond Hull, beyond people who take the ferry. That's why the business community is fighting to preserve this.
I'm Robert King. I'm a vice president with A.W. Perry Incorporated, which is located here in Hingham and in Boston. The ferry, which has been running for, as I understand it, 45 years, I think is instrumental and is essential to the growth that's happened at the Hingham shipyard, especially when you see that there are over 650 apartment units that have been built in the shipyard over the last, say, 10 years. There have been 250 condominium units built in the shipyard. And I think all of those residential units, the 650 apartments and the 250 condominium units have all based their underwriting and based their viability on having easy access to and from Boston with the ferry. But we do have younger professionals who use the boat to commute to work. Healthcare professionals, first responders, we have everybody there. If you count in total all the commercial investments and all the condominium, people who have bought all the condominiums at the moorings, at Hewitt's Landings, you're gonna have $600 million of investment in the shipyard that has basically driven those residential units, as I said, were driven by the proximity to the ferry.
Hi, my name is Lori Tobin. I live on the South Shore and I love the ferry. How I can share my personal connection to the South Shore is I moved down to the South Shore in 1994. And I've been living here that many years. It's been a long time. And I've been taking the ferry ever since then. And now I have a family and we take the ferry all the time. My son, when he was in grammar school, his school would take him on outings and they would take the ferry into Boston. Junior high would take him into Boston by ferry, and also the senior high school would take the kids in by ferry. It's a wonderful way to travel, and it's so beautiful. My husband and I both work. We both have done business by taking the ferry in, and we've also done, we do it for social as well. We'll go out to dinner, we'll go see a play, and it's so nice to take the ferry in and the ferry home, and it's so beautiful. I see a lot of South Shore residents taking the ferry every morning because they go into Boston and they have to do it for work. Some people take it in so that they can go to the doctors because their doctors are in Boston. And certainly you'll see people with luggage because they're going off to the airport as well. One of the nicest things about the ferry is for public transportation, you can actually go sit outside. Oh, the views are amazing. Boston Harbor is wonderful. All different times of the year. They keep it closed in up top, so there's only one entrance coming in, so you can sit there, and they have plastic on the window, so you can actually view the harbor even in the coldest of days. And it's I find it the most best way to get into Boston.
I am State Representative Joan Moschino. I am a lifelong Hull resident. I grew up there, and my husband and I moved back not too long after we graduated from law school. I guess we never really let go of our roots, do we? But I have lived in Hull, and I was a selectman there for a number of years, and now, of course, I'm the state representative for the district, and I am a faithful ferry rider. So the ferries actually are personal connection for me and the community, even from being a young professional, the first job commuting into the city. I can remember coming back just for a brief period after I graduated from college and living at my parents' house while I was waiting to get my first apartment. And every morning I would get up and my mom would drop me over at Hull Gut, and I would take the ferry. Of course, back then there was just one ride in, one ride home. And really what was so important about that sort of brief 6-month period for me was it was such a sense of community. The people that rode the Hull ferry at that time and still today are friends because they commute into work together. Over the past, I would say 15 or 20 years, the ferry has really thrived both in Hingham and in Hull as they've built out the routes and they've made it more convenient, and it's really enabled people to commit to that mode of transit, and it's just flourished. And the really wonderful part about it is that the community on both of the ferry runs has also flourished. My favorite story recently was someone shared with me that they had some tourists rent the blue bikes, get on the ferry, land in Hull, pedal around, enjoy the beach, enjoy the amenities, enjoy the restaurants, pedal back, and take the bike back into the city. And I think that kind of connectivity shouldn't be terminated. We should be bold, and we should be looking for ways to build it.
There's no longer a ferry service, we'd see, and once the pandemic is over, and if circumstances return to where they were, we'd see congestion on Route 3A, and we'd see congestion on the Southeast Expressway. We estimate that the ridership of the ferries in 2019 was equivalent to several lanes of the expressway at rush hour. So we know that by providing this alternative route across the navigable waterway, which is Boston Harbor, we're providing, in a sense, an additional lane or two to the Southeast Expressway. So the traffic impact will be terrible. Secondly, we know, because people have already said that this would happen, we know that people will leave the residences located in the Hingham shipyard. They moved there because the ferry was there. We now have a community of perhaps 1,500 people living immediately adjacent to the ferry terminal. And if they have no way to get to Boston, if they can't go directly, it's going to be very difficult, particularly in the case of Hull. In the case of Hull, it's 27 miles by road, by narrow winding road to Boston, which takes over an hour. Their direct route to Boston by water is about 10 miles, takes about 20 minutes. The face of Hull has changed dramatically in the 45 years because of the existence of frequency in the ferries. And it would be devastating for that community and for Hingham as well.
There are over 1 million passenger trips on the ferries each year. That's a lot of people that are being moved, a lot of trips that are being made. Very convenient for those people. The message, though, that we have for the entire South Shore and government is that this isn't simply about moving more than a few 100,000 people back and forth to Boston every year. It is about all of the economic development around the South Shore, which also supports the state's economy and Boston's future. So this is a very nearsighted proposal by the MBTA that only looks at their immediate short-term problem, not the state's long-term future.
So this is what you can do right now. So first, there are some key dates that everyone needs to be aware of. The first key date is Monday, November 9th, and that is when the MBTA board will be meeting with the Fiscal Management Control Board to present its initial proposal. At that point, they will enter into a series of public comment sessions. Actually, I believe they begin on November 19th, and then they will run through into December, and then the MBTA board and the Fiscal Management Control Board will reconvene to actually hear the recommendations and take a vote and make a decision. So that's the time frame. So we have 6 weeks. Right now, what we're asking people to do is to watch and pay attention. Every time the MBTA board or the MassDOT board or the Fiscal Management Control Board meet, we're asking people to log on and to watch the meetings so that they know we're paying attention. If people feel comfortable in advance of an MBTA board meeting, we're asking that they send an email to the board to let them know why they value the ferry and the commuter rail, why public transit is so important to them. If people feel comfortable, they can also record a voicemail in advance of an MBTA board meeting that actually gets played at the board meeting, 3 minutes only. And then we're asking people, once the decision is made and the proposal is voted upon and is out there for public comment, we will be publishing the schedule of public hearings, and we're asking people to once again speak up and send in their comments through that formal process. And then we will, a third time, ask people to once again weigh in directly with the MBTA and the Fiscal Management Control Board in advance of their final meeting. So we have a brief window of time, about 5 weeks now, when these decisions are going to be made, and we need the public's help to make the case for why the ferry should be considered critical public transit.
COVID will go away, but life on the South Shore will only return to normal if we keep our ferry.